The thought of networking in person caused me massive anxiety and fear, even though networking is one of my superpowers, because I attract people easily and can find connection with anybody. I even got a lone wolf who hates fat chicks to call me his girlfriend. How? Well, I just use my superpowers via email and a little lie. But it's okay because all marketers lie. It's a book by Seth Godin, so you should read it. Anyway, even though Jay hates networking, he taught me how to love networking and get over my fears and insecurities. So today, we're going to learn from the expert who taught me how to harness my superpowers and really connect with everyone and get over all that fear. So Jay, lots of people use the word networking and get all crunchy about it. Why do so many people hate and are afraid to network with other people?
It's a good question. And before I answer it, let me just quickly clear up. I don't hate fat chicks. I don't hate networking. I just prefer to delegate it. And yeah, I'm more of a lover of things. As for why people feel tense or awkward or anxious or crunchy about networking, well, it's the same reason most people tend to hate most things.
Because it sucks? Because they're insecure?
No. Some people hate swimming or riding a bike at first because they don't what?
Oh, they don't know how.
Yeah. They don't understand it. They don't know how to do it. They've never been taught. Mm-hmm. And once they get taught or they understand it or they learn how to do it, do they then hate the thing?
No.
Right. There's a common thread for most or maybe all hate is that it's something a person doesn't understand. If they ever hate something, it's something they don't understand.
Right.
You might have heard the phrase, people hate what they don't understand.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, same for this.
Oh, okay. I thought you had more to say. I was waiting for you to say more.
Well, if it doesn't answer your question, then I'm happy to give more.
No, but okay. So most people who talk about hating networking, the first thing they'll say is, I'm an introvert, or I don't like talking to strangers and it feels weird, or it feels salesy and fake. But like, to me, it really boils down to everything you just said. Like, if you don't understand it and you don't practice, of course you hate it.
Yeah, that's all mostly just excuses because networking is just a buzzword or a fancy word for connecting with other humans. And connecting with other humans isn't really something that only extroverts do or something that only salespeople do. It's something everyone does. Yeah. Everyone on the planet has to connect with other humans, short of a few isolated hermits.
True.
So I assume we don't have any of them watching. So that's basically our entire audience has to connect with other humans.
Right. Okay. Thanks. I love it. I love it. Well, believe it or not, I am an introvert.
Are you though?
Yeah, I am. I consider myself an introvert, but connecting with people is fun for me and it feels good. But I spent many years hiding from other people. I don't answer phone calls and I prefer to be at home and in my space. However,
really, out of all the ways that we can market our podcast, what's your number one preferred way?
In person.
Number one preferred way.
In person.
Over everything else.
Yeah, in person.
Okay, introvert.
Okay, well, maybe I'm an introverted extrovert, whatever.
No, the problem is introvert and extrovert is a bunch of made up bullshit by marketers who wanted to, I don't know, publish a quiz or get shy people to buy or whatever.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting.
What? Those aren't official terms made up by some like god tier psychological study that really dug deep into humanity with a charitable cause to find out the real truth about this stuff. It's like some paid for study by corporations or CEOs or marketers or somebody.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people identify with this.
Oh, of course.
Most people consider themselves an introvert because they don't like to talk to strangers or they like to be alone.
Most people consider themselves an introvert because it's easier to claim I'm an introvert than to go learn how to network and communicate and connect with other humans, especially when they haven't been taught.
Fair play.
That sounds like a big, tall order. And rather than do all that, I'm just an introvert and now I don't need to do it.
Yeah, this is like kind of an excuse.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You're not the only person I've met who calls himself an introvert and ends up being super extroverted and connecting with everybody and meeting everybody. Like one of my biggest clients in the past says the same thing about himself. It's like, okay, dude, you have millions of followers. You're on camera daily. You meet so many fans. You connect more than anyone I know. If you're an introvert, what does that make my neighbor down the hall who won't ever leave his house?
Fair play.
It's like, no, you're not. I mean, feel free to keep claiming that. And it's great marketing stuff and people are going to love it and connect with it. But that's made up stuff. There's a book by Benjamin Hardy called Personality Isn't Permanent. I've never read it, but the title alone is enough for me. That's good enough for me. Like, I got it. I totally get it. Tons of people on the planet have changed their personality in major ways. Anyone can. And so if you happen to have an introverted personality, that's not permanent. It's not something you were gifted from above that is never going to change. It's just a bunch of learned behaviors of how you were raised and how you're brought up. And now you're using it as an excuse or a crutch, or you're just going through the motions or repeating something somebody taught you. Whatever it is, you've been swindled, man. Like, that's totally changeable. And if you want to succeed in life, you do want to connect with other humans. It's going to be important. So clinging to this introvert label ain't going to help nobody.
Well, actually, that gets into my point. And my question is because, well, first of all, I want to touch on something you just said too, is your personality is not permanent. I know that that's the name of that book, but I, for one of all people, know, because if anybody who knew me before you would be shocked at the person I am today, that I'm on camera, that I wear makeup, and that I'm vulnerable and share my business with the world. Like, this is not who I was because I was, as I said, an introvert for so long. And a lot of people would call you that because you like to stay home and you're, a lone wolf, or you were. And so, yeah, it's true. And we've both changed our personalities from like night to day, basically separately. So yeah, I totally agree with that. So what I was saying was, even though I have felt like that in the past as an introvert, for me, connecting with people is super easy. But in the past, I've also let my fears and my insecurities take over and be afraid of the things I was going to say, or what I might do, or like I might embarrass myself, all those silly stories I was telling myself.
Yeah. So would you say you're an example of someone who's naturally great at networking and connecting with other people and who chose to hide behind an introvert mask?
Yeah, I definitely did. 100%. I thought I couldn't have a social media presence and share my life with the world like I'm doing now, or that I've done for the last 4 years with you, because that's not who I am. This was the thought I had for so long. And I let all those fears and insecurities run my life and keep everything in my life small and not trying. So yeah, great question.
Aha. The tables have turned.
Well, yeah. And soon we're going to do a whole new podcast episode where we're both asking each other questions. So that's going to be interesting. You guys stay tuned for that. Anyway, to get back to my question, you helped me to get past those fears and insecurities so that I could tap into my natural ability of networking and being a good marketer. Like, you saw this in me before I ever did. And I was like, there's no way. And you were super adamant and you believed in me and you were right. And so I'm so grateful. Thank you. So my question is, the people out there who identify as introverts the way that I did and kind of still do, I mean, this is a label that
Can we drop it?
Yes.
Like, no offense to any self-identifying introverts, but this is not helping you. Just be like, I don't have a lot of practice connecting.
Right.
No one taught me how to connect. It's okay. But you don't need to identify as the non-connector who never connects, because then you're
all right. So then how can the people out there that have had trouble in the past and are here clearly to learn something, so how can they improve their networking skills when they're full of those fears and insecurities like I was?
Okay, now we're talking. This is a really healthy question. How can I improve at this thing that is important? Mm-hmm. Amen. And first, admit you can move along the scale, move along the spectrum. You can go from introvert to extrovert. You can become better at connecting or worse at connecting. You can move back and forth on the scale. Mm-hmm. Maybe they haven't moved for a long time. That's fine, but they can start. And so one way is to just shift your perspective. Perspective changes are very powerful. For example, a lot of people have the perspective that strangers are weird or scary or complicated or something. but strangers aren't. Strangers are just other humans, and every human on the planet has something in common. Many things in common, actually.
Mhm.
Every human being wants to grow in various areas of their life. They want to experience and expand their freedom in various areas of life. And they want more moments of joy in every area of their life. So I could run into a modern writer on the street, and without knowing anything about him, I can tell you three things. He wants to grow. He's working on it right now, like today. He wants to experience more freedom. He's all about it in the moment today. And he wants to experience more moments of joy. He's on that track too. And so all it would take is a few questions. What are you passionate about? What are you interested in? Why are you so rushed? Why are you busy? How come your shoulders are tense? Whatever. And it's going to start him off on this whole story or diatribe of, oh, my business isn't doing as well as I want. I need to sell more books. Well, why do you need to sell more books? Guess what? It's for joy, freedom, or growth.
Yes.
And he's going to say, well, so I can spend more time with my family. I don't feel like I have enough time with my family. And I'm like, okay, so here I have this writer who's out in the world hustling, trying to sell his books, which this hustle is keeping him away from his family. And he's doing it just so he can spend more time with his family. So how do I connect with this person? I can commiserate with him over this. I can share my story too. I feel the same way. I can solve it, right? I can be like, well, why don't I go get that coffee for you and you can spend more time writing? And he will instantly feel like loved and valued and appreciated. But I could do the same thing with some Pygmy tribe in Timbuktu or whatever. I can go there. So I could go up to one of the tribesmen and I see that he's spending a lot of time with his child very intensely, very closely. And I ask him what he's doing. And he says, oh, I'm teaching little Johnny to be a man, to do a job, to learn a trade, learn a skill so he can contribute to the village. Oh, why are you doing that? Because that will give me more time, free time to go on my vision quest. But I can't do that until I make sure he's the man of the house and able to look after our tribe. And so here we are again, sort of the opposite thing. He wants time away from his family, but why? For growth and freedom. And it will give him more moments of joy. This is what he's looking to do. And so how can I connect with him? I'll offer to babysit or offer to teach him these things or give the kid some practice or whatever. Or I could take a different angle and tell him I have some new way to complete vision quests in a shorter time. And he's like, oh, that sounds amazing. Maybe I could get away for a weekend or something.
Right.
Whatever the case, as long as I address his freedom, joy, and growth, he's going to feel valued. He's going to feel loved. I'm going to connect with them. It's going to be awesome. And it could be as simple as a compliment. Like, you're doing a great job raising little Johnny. I think he's going to be ready to take care of the tribe very soon. And he'll be like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Because that's what's important to him. That's what matters to him. Just like all humans, he's about his freedom, his growth, and his joy. And so strangers aren't weird or complicated or whatever. The same thing applies to some whacked out homeless drug addict on the street. If I want to connect to that guy, what's he about? He's still about his freedom, growth, and joy. But to him, it's getting his next fix or something. And I'm like, you know what? I think I saw someone down that corner they were carrying, right? And he's like, you're kidding me. I'm like, yeah. Brown leather jacket. And he's like, dude, thank you. Now, assuming I wasn't lying, he's going to appreciate it.
Right.
Or I could be like, I had a friend who had the same problem. And whenever that happened to them, they would go play a video game. It would take the edge off. There's an internet cafe right there. Maybe give it a shot. Like, he'll appreciate it.
This is true. And I just want to interrupt you for a second, please. And I just want to let people know this bit of information you're giving. This is like the juiciest gold nugget you could ever get in your life. Because once you understand that the entire world, every single human being only cares about freedom, growth, joy, and growth, that's the answer. To everything. Why people do the dumbass shit they do, this is why. Why people do the great, amazing things they do, this is why. When you don't understand someone else's whatever, this is what it is. This is the real reason. Even though most people can't articulate it or understand it, this is why. And this is such an amazing lesson that you taught me. We had it on the chalkboard for the longest time until I drilled it into my head because I really wanted to understand. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that so I could give this extra bit of juicy goodness to everyone listening. So thank you.
My pleasure. I'm glad you appreciate it. You want one more example with a woke leftist or something?
Sure. Yeah.
So say you run into a woke leftist on the street and they're protesting passionately about climate change or people of color or women's rights or something. These are common causes, I would think.
Right.
And if you ask them why, they'll have all kinds of reasons. I care about the planet, or I'm so tired of the little people being stepped on by big government, or whatever they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But the real reason is growth, freedom, or joy.
Yeah.
To them, they're going to feel happy if they can personally contribute to someone who appears to be in need.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that's the right definition of joy or happiness.
Yeah, it's different for all of us.
But
right.
to them, that's a hit of joy that they're seeking.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're going to feel personal growth as they grow their cause or their activism. They're not satisfied with how it's been going so far. And so this protest is going to be a step for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to go home and feel proud of their growth, their personal growth in what they're doing. It's like, it doesn't matter who I am or what my politics are. If I contribute to that person, they're going to appreciate it. If I help that protest along or help that cause along and I'm sincere about it and I'm really actively looking to do whatever I can to help, they're going to feel it and going to connect.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're coming at it from a freedom angle. Like they really champion free speech and freedom for these minorities, and they don't feel that that freedom is being addressed enough. And so they're taking it into their own hands to create more freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I say something like, all the protesters can come back to my place for some food and drinks afterwards. You guys are doing a great thing here, and I want to contribute any way I can. And you contribute your own home or your own food or your own drink. Bam, instant friends with all these people. Yeah. They will love you. Especially if you throw in a little, I was going to say beers, but it's probably more like mojitos or
weed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple joints or something.
Yeah.
But the point is, I just showed you that I could connect to anyone from any walk of life.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do a right-leaning conservative too, if you want. But the point is, you asked how can introverts connect to people more? And it's like, well, this perspective shift can help. And once you have the perspective and you understand that all 8 billion humans have many things in common, the next step is to practice it, actually put in the effort, actually make some moves. And it can start small. You could start with just a one-line email to somebody or a WhatsApp message, right? It could start with just a tiny compliment. But as long as you're focused on that person's freedom, growth, and joy, they're going to feel it.
100%.
But it has to come from the heart.
Agreed. I totally agree. And actually understanding this was really helpful for me when I was practicing my networking skills. The first time that I sent a cold message to somebody a long time ago when we had our Facebook group, or no, even before that, when we were doing Rice Cake and I was sending cold messages to people that I didn't know, I was terrified. I remember staring at the message and my finger hovering over the send button on Instagram. And I was like, all these ridiculous scenarios were running through my head. But what I was saying resonated with so many people, and people made me feel so comfortable. And I was connecting with them because I was making the effort to make it personal. I didn't just send a cold email that went to everyone. I went to their page and found things that they liked. They had posted pictures of their dogs or their cats or their family or their job or their business. And I found a way to connect to whatever that was that they clearly cared about, that they were posting. And I found a connection, and my reply rate was next level. And even with all my fears and insecurities, and the more it happened, the more practice I got, the easier it became. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a great example. Anyone who sincerely makes an effort to connect with others and practices regularly is going to get results.
Yeah, agreed. Well, thank you. I'm grateful because now it's nothing for me, but I remember that beginning was rough, but only because I didn't practice enough. I was satisfied with a few messages and then that's not practice. Once I was when we had the Facebook group and I was doing 100 a day, and I was getting told to F off by one person out of 100, but I was getting 50, 60 replies that were positive. And even if they didn't care or didn't want to, they were nice. And they replied back and they're like, oh, you're so nice. Thank you so much. I'm not interested, but I really appreciate your message. And still, I connected with many people who never joined the group and didn't buy anything from us, but we still, to this day, still communicate. So yeah, it was a very good opportunity.
And even those one rejections, like the one person who told you to F off, you could connect with them too. Mm-hmm. when they get mad because you spammed them or something, you have an opportunity. You could say something like, oh, my bad. Because in their mind, you have done something offensive to them.
Yeah.
You've done a harm. So you just, my bad. You probably get 1 million of these, huh? And they're like, none of the people who write them ever says my bad and, oh, you probably get 1 million of these, huh? So they're automatically out of their normal script of replying to spammers or telemarketers or whatever. And now they're treating you like a human. And they're like, yeah, I do. So what made you do it? Like, they're like, what the hell, man? Why are you? Then it's your opportunity to promote their freedom, joy, and growth. And you could be like, look, I got into this business to help people, but I didn't realize the only way to do this is to actually just get out there and message tons of people. It's like the street teams on the corners who are handing out candy bars and trying to take surveys and stuff. There's a reason these have existed since the beginning. And you're telling them this story and you're like, you seem pretty smart. Do you think there's a way I could avoid this? Like, I never really wanted to do this when I got into it. How would you grow your business or get helping people? Because I'm trying to help people. And they're like, now they're on your side and they're like, you're calling them smart, asking for their advice on how to do better than spamming. And
yeah. And another thing that was helpful for me, for those people who were negative, was to come back at them with love. Like, if they were mean, then I would say, oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate your input. I hope you have a wonderful day. And then you, wonderful you made me gifts to give them. We had persuasion article. We had a My Business is Fine article. Why you hate cold DMs. Like all these great, and people were surprised. Most of the time, people would thank me. A lot of people would say, sorry, I've had a bad day. Like, I don't really like this kind of thing, but you seem really nice. And like, I got a lot of people backpedaling and being like, oh, my bad. Maybe I was a little harsh, and a lot of other people are rude about it. And, and I even had people offering to teach me other ways of getting attention without doing that, without cold email. So the point is this is all practice, and it's all positive thing, even when they do tell you to F off. So the examples you gave were great too. So
yeah. And that was just an aside, right? You don't have to go and connect with the rejections and the negative people.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we touched on it, because like any skill, to practice it, you have to be okay with slip-ups or with rejections or with failures of some kind. You can't get better at any skill if you're not okay with failures.
Right.
If you want to get better at riding a bike, you have to be okay falling off. If you want to get better at swimming, you have to be okay getting some water in your lungs or whatever.
Right.
And if you want to get better at networking, you have to be okay with some people bristling or being prickly or not feeling like connecting right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you spend your time focusing on that after, like you get a rejection or you get someone who's not so nice, if you spend the rest of your time focusing on that, this is the wrong thing to focus on. Like, you're focusing on the negative. What do you think you're going to get more of the next day?
Yeah. If you fall off your bike and all you focus on is, I fell. Well, that's not any way to learn or get better at riding your bike.
Right.
Instead, focus on getting back on and doing better.
And if you're having trouble afterwards and you're still thinking about it, just go do something that makes you happy. Okay, so we're going to move on then. So one of the things people complain about when it comes to networking is they don't feel very authentic. They feel fake and they're not being themselves. How can we feel more authentic and come across as more like our real self with someone we don't really know that well?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I'm not sure I've ever seen a video teach authenticity. I'm sure there's one out there, but it's a juicy topic. So again, I do my best to see everything in life as a skill, because if you see it as a skill, this makes it learnable. And if it's learnable, it's practicable. If it's practicable, you can start now and be better by next week, kind of thing. And being authentic is certainly a skill that you can practice. For many people, they're raised to be wearing a mask at all times. They're raised to be people pleasing to others, or trying to fit in, or caving to peer pressure, or following society's script, anything but being themselves and being authentic. They're taught to get a job, get a career, picket fence, partner, spouse, whatever, maybe that's not their path. I don't know. But as soon as you start teaching somebody that and they start internalizing it and chasing it, they're totally off their path of being authentic. Unless they're one of the few who that's their authentic path. But generally, people are just raised and trained to be inauthentic. And I feel like your daughter might watch some of these episodes, but I want to use her as an example. Is that
that's fine? Listen,
it's all love. Like
it's all love, and I've been clear and honest with them that I'm going to mention them a lot.
Well, whatever.
We don't ever call them by name.
No. The point is, it's like a good example of a teenager, and I don't have that many in my life. So.
Oh, good. No, thank you.
So I bet she would claim that she's being authentic. But when I was a teenager, I wasn't authentic. It takes a lot of unmasking and undoing societal conditioning to become authentic. Since it takes a lot of unmasking and undoing societal conditioning to become authentic, do you think it's something someone's going to pull off between when they were 12 and 18, like that 6-year period? Yeah, they became authentic. Or is it more likely that they're just trying on society's ideas and going with the flow and doing whatever their friends do and becoming inauthentic?
Yeah.
I actually can't think of any teenager I met who was authentic. Maybe some prodigy celebrities who like found who they were early and shone that authenticity on stage and did well for themselves. I don't know. But the thousands of teenagers in my school, I don't think there was an authentic one.
There's not. And I was a teacher and taught in high school and was a teenager with lots of people around me. And again, same as you, I don't think ever one.
Right. So by the time we're all teenagers, it's okay to accept that we're all wearing many masks. We've buried our authenticity, and it's going to take some practice and some doing to reclaim that. So there are some things that are very good for finding your authenticity, and there are some things that are much less good for finding your authenticity, and I dare say extremely bad for finding your authenticity. So on the one hand, time alone, really being alone for a long period of time, isolated for multiple days at a time, where you don't have stimulation and devices and all this kind of stuff. You're not connecting with friends online and all this kind of stuff. You're actually unplugging. You're actually being alone with yourself and your thoughts and your emotions. This takes your attention off of all of the societal nonsense and puts it on yourself. I had to be alone when I was homeless, and it opened my eyes to who I really am. You had to be alone when I left. You were completely untethered, alone on your own, and it helped you find your real self. You look all throughout history, every biography, all these stories you've ever heard of, vision quests or being sequestered or hitting rock bottom or whatever it is, it's someone being alone, meditating alone. And this is a great way to start finding your authenticity. Another thing that helps find it is journaling.
100% agree.
And people think it's fluff. I'm like, nah, I don't want to bother and whatever. I can just think it in my head. It's like, no, you can't. There's a weird quirk about journaling where you have to sit down again with your own thoughts and feelings and put them into words that other people can understand, like fully well-written sentences. Not just like, oh yeah, man, I felt shitty today. Like you have to stop and think like, because X happened, I felt Y. And I'd really like Z to happen next time. And it's possible that I didn't do enough to make that happen. Or maybe this person is not really great in my life. And you're really starting to like take a look at your life. But that doesn't happen until you start writing.
It's true.
I've never seen it.
So I'm going to just interrupt. My 15-year-old recently told me when I said something about, I know you don't like to write. He goes, well, I journal and that makes me feel better. So
yeah,
exactly
fantastic.
What you're saying, yeah.
My point is having to write down your thoughts forces you to edit them and rewrite words and make a better choice, a better word choice. Where verbal, you're allowed to just spew out whatever you want, or mentally you just think whatever you want. There's no like guiding rails to sort of get you on track. It's only the act of taking what you're thinking and putting it down into reality, making it real, staring at it in black and white, that changes things. Even people who hate writing or don't like writing are highly recommended to consider this.
Yes, agreed.
If you go live a life of 100 years, that like 1 week where you journaled will still be a game changer. So what's 1 week of writing kind of thing? Give it a shot. A third thing that helps you find your authenticity is to tune into your heart and your intuition and quiet the mind chatter. Meditation helps with this, but really just day to day. How did that make me feel? Why do I feel this way? Can I change these feelings? Can I manage my moods? If I feel bad every time I talk to that person, should I stop talking to this person? Should I find a better way to talk to this person? Are these the kind of people I want to be around? Do I want to be the kind of person who's able to communicate better with this kind of person? What is it, right? What do I want out of life?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll leave it at these 3 behaviors for finding your authenticity. It's a good start. There's plenty of others, but things that crush your authenticity are ignoring your feelings and heart and intuition and giving into peer pressure in any way, because to be authentic, your impulses and drive needs to come from inside, from within you, not from outside you, not some pressure or some wish or some whim or some desire from society or other people. It has to come from you. What do you truly want? What will make your heart sing? Not what will please your friends and make you look cool. Caring about image is a surefire way to lose authenticity.
100%.
And a lack of critical thinking.
It's good, yeah.
If feminism tells you this and you just buy into it without critical thinking, you don't journal about it, you don't go off and think about it in a cottage, you don't give it any thought or critical thinking at all. You just, sounds good to me, and it makes so-and-so like me, it makes my friends happy, and I look good on social media, so I'm just buying into this. Not a great way to find authenticity. This will be counterproductive. Even what you hear on this podcast here and now, don't just take what I'm saying at face value. Think critically about it. Mm-hmm. Am I right? Is what I'm saying correct? Does it resonate? Or is what everyone else says correct? You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're right. But you got to figure it out for yourself. You got to go through it word by word, idea by idea, sentence by sentence, concept by concept. And it takes work and it takes effort. And this is why most people aren't authentic, because to undo all the masks of society and reclaim our authenticity takes quite a bit of effort and practice in the beginning, until you get good at critical thinking and good at ignoring peer pressure and good at not caring about image and good at journaling and good at taking alone time and good at tuning into your heart. When you become good at it, it's very easy.
Right.
But it's quite a journey, because from ages 1 to 18 or whatever, you've been indoctrinated by society. And so that's 18 years of stuff to undo. And you could do it in a year, you could do it in 6 months, whatever, but it's still going to take some work. It's going to take some effort. You're going to have to apply yourself and do unfamiliar, uncomfortable things. And so most people hear this and they're like, well, I'd rather just be an introvert then. Then I'm just going to call myself an introvert. Authentic connection. I ain't doing this. And I'm like, that's fine. But that's the most miserable, hardest work and life of all. You want the hardest grind of your life? Try being inauthentic for decades. That is the hardest. You can say, oh, it's easier just to call myself an introvert, not bother connecting, and stop learning this authenticity stuff. But I'm telling you right now, you just chose the hardest life possible, because things will only click for you when you're being authentic. And connecting with other human beings requires authenticity. Otherwise, it's an inauthentic connection that will just bring pain.
Totally agree with all of everything you said. And when I was networking and learning how to connect with other people, one of the things that continued to come up for me was how much I cared about what other people thought of me. And this is something that, as you know, I've worked on quite a bit. It's been a journey, and I've had to take baby steps and I've had to practice. But without you, I would never have learned this. And when you first hear all this stuff, it can be a little overwhelming and you're like, oh my God, like I can't change who I am. But that's a bunch of crap, because you can.
Yeah,
you
start with one journal.
Choose, right. You choose to care about what other people think. You choose to live in fear and let your insecurities control you. You can get out of those things with all the things, the steps that you gave, the journaling, being alone with your thoughts. And when he says being alone with your thoughts, he doesn't mean being alone with your thoughts while you watch Netflix. Like in silence, alone with your thoughts, and then taking those thoughts and putting them on paper and journaling. And then the critical thinking. This is the critical thinking, I think, maybe the most, well, they're all important, but the critical thinking part is what we're not really taught that well. And like just taking our word or your word or, you know, other people's videos at their word. And this happens quite a bit. And if you aren't sure of something, ask questions, challenge yourself. Because this is how you're going to grow. And I'm saying this because this is exactly what I had to do so that I could learn to be who I really am and stop giving a crap what other people think.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So here's the hard question. Did you raise your daughter to be an inauthentic person because you were inauthentic back then?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes. I hate to say it, but I'm not lying.
All good.
I'm authentic now. So in my home, when I was married and my children were growing up, it was really important to us, my ex and I, how everyone saw us and perceived us. We always all matched. We always looked good together when we left the house. I had all kinds of rules for what my kids could do and couldn't do, who was allowed over, and people weren't allowed over because they would see behind closed doors who we really were. And I didn't like this.
But your kids' authentic selves might have wanted to do different things.
Of course
and live
they
a
did.
different way.
And I crushed that. And I'm sorry, but I did. I did. I crushed their little authentic selves. And now, yesterday, I talked to my son on the phone. And even with me, like, I knew he was upset. I don't want to get into why, but I knew he was having a hard time. But even with me, he couldn't say the words, I'm in pain, I'm scared. I had to drag it out of him only because I want to teach him that it's okay to be honest and be his real self. I want him to be like that with everybody, but
he was stuck in mask mode.
I need him to at least be like that with me so that I can help him take off all the masks and be his real true self.
Well, I'm really proud of you for that admission. I don't think many parents would admit that I was inauthentic and I raised my kids to be unauthentic too. That's crazy to on a mission, but I think it's important and it's no big deal. Like, it is what it is. Everyone does it.
Yeah.
It's just you're the only one who was brave enough to admit it. So, and now do you feel you could undo it? You could teach them a new way because you've found your authenticity. And so you can lead by example and show what authentic living is.
100%. Yes.
How to be yourself. And consequently, they can be themselves, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah. And I had a mini lesson with him on the phone yesterday, explaining a little bit, not in these exact words, but, with his situation, what was going on, and telling him it's okay to be honest. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay that I disagree with you, or I think you made a mistake. I still love you, even though you made a mistake. And this was the language he needed to hear. But basically, I was telling him to take off that stupid mask, that you're okay and you're some tough, kid, and you're, you got this, and be the true self that you're scared and it's okay. So, and without you, there's no way I would have been able to get to this point of being my true self. In fact, one of our super fans noticed too, even though I couldn't quite put his finger on what had changed in the podcast, but he could see my growth. And I recently watched one of our first videos, and you can see my growth from that video through up until today, and how much I've changed, just letting go of some of that stuff, letting go of my inauthenticity. And you may be wondering, like, how does all this go with networking, and how does this fit into that? So maybe you could answer that.
Of course. There are 8 billion people on the planet. And whether you believe in a higher power or not, some of those people are meant for you. Mm-hmm. They're your people, and they're out there, and they're waiting, and they will find you and be magnetized to you, and they will connect to you only when you're being yourself and your masks are off. If your masks are on, other people will find you because they'll see the mask and they'll be like, oh, this is our people. This is our crowd. Mm-hmm. So maybe you attract abusers, or you attract scam artists, or you attract narcissists, or you attract whatever. It's like, but you have your own masks on too. So how is your true people, your real tribe, going to find you and connect to you? And it matters every moment, because every human interaction is a chance for connection. People are attuned and ready to connect to you if your true self is out there and available, if you're vulnerable enough to connect, if you're authentic enough to connect. If you're just inauthentic and a bunch of masks, you won't get any connection at all, or you'll get connection, but it's fake connection that won't last, and it's not sustainable, and it's going to have fallout. So a prerequisite for connection is to be authentic. If you don't like waking up early, you can find a whole group of night owls. They exist. But not if you pretend like, oh, I'm a diligent worker and I love waking up early. Then you just meet other people who love waking up early because they're all awake too. They're the only ones around. If you like, showing off and slutting it up, if that's your inner heart, you can find other people who are okay with that. Mm-hmm. There's huge chunks of people who are okay with that. You can find them online. You can find them in LA. You can find them anywhere, but not if you dress like a prude and pretend like you're a super buttoned up Muslim, fully adorned, hijab wearing person, right? If that's not you, but you're playing that role because of religion and your parents and your culture and society. Maybe you need to change that. Mia Khalifa did, and then she changed her mind back, but she's still kind of slutty. So whatever. You got to find what works for you. Find your lane, find your zone. And I left this off the list, but experimenting is huge for finding who you are.
Yeah.
You can't do it like just thinking all the time. That's a good start. But when you try it, then you find out what really makes your heart sing. Like when you finally dive into the water and you're like, oh, swimming is for me. Or you finally drop feminism and you're like, you know what? I just want to be a trad wife. Or you finally start showing some skin or dyeing your hair blue or whatever it is. And your heart sings and you're like, this is me. This is so good. And I don't care what people think. And I know it's going to piss off tons of my old circles, but I'm growing and this is the authentic me and it feels good. Experiments will help you find that. But anyways, my point is most people teach networking and they're like, oh, give out business cards at a networking event. But when I teach networking, it's about understanding your true self and understanding others and aligning those wherever you can. Because there's 8 billion humans and you're going to find your people if you do this.
Agreed. And if you wear the mask, you're going to find those people. Well, you're going to find those people also wearing the mask. And so you'll just attract more of that inauthenticity. So like you just gave a masterclass on networking. And I think it's amazing. Everything that you've set up until this point, as usual, is incredible. And if you liked it and you thought it was great and you want more of Jay and you want him to help you with your specific situation, your specific question, whatever, please feel free to leave it in the comments or email me. I always add my email at the end of the description. Or you can check out our book, Eyes Wide Open, Volume 1, where Jay goes into lots of different topics, a lot of things we talk about on the podcast, and a lot of things that we haven't yet, but we will.
And it's the world's first self-help coffee table book. Beautiful, short. You got to check it out.
Yeah, it's amazing. The link's in the description as well. So one of the best books I've ever read on networking is How to Make Friends and Influence People by
Dale Carnegie.
Thanks. So Jay, how can we really make friends and influence people?
I mean, we've mostly been covering that, but I can go a little deeper. Also, I read that book when I was like 21 and I remember it being good, but I think it was just common sense stuff. Give compliments, respect people.
It is. It's a lot of the stuff I actually do. And now I didn't read it until a couple months ago. He gives really good tips. It's just, he's not the best writer. So
for me, networking or connecting with others is really just a simple framework. I showed earlier how I could do it with just about anybody, but the framework is really assessing others' perceived needs. Step 1.
Oh, okay.
Assessing others' perceived needs and then fulfilling those perceived needs in whatever way you can. That's it.
Okay, but if you're in an event, okay, and you have like 5 minutes to meet someone because there's tons of people around. How can you do that in a 5-minute conversation?
So the last time I did this at a networking event, I was sitting beside someone and they didn't have a program. So what's the perceived need?
They need a program.
Yeah. So I gave them mine. Instant connection. The other day, I came up here to the office to fix a scanner and the lady there started talking quite a bit and sharing her story and sharing her view on life. So what was her perceived need?
To be heard.
Yeah. So I listened. Smiled at the right places, nodded at the right places, asked appropriate questions. Sure, it took a little attention away from my tech repair or whatever, but she felt loved and appreciated and heard. I connected again.
She did indeed, yeah.
Right. When we had our first conversation and you were in Starbucks over Skype or something, you were crying and depressed and beating up on yourself. And so what's the perceived need?
I wanted to feel better.
Yeah. So what did I do?
It made me feel better.
Gave some compliments, gave some perspective shifts, offered a little advice, asked some insightful questions.
You did.
Sure. It's not rocket science. It's 3 examples of me connecting with people. I don't need 20 years to assess a perceived need. Perceived needs are generally obvious. People are talking about them all the time. If you go to the Amazon review section of a book and you go look and read through the Amazon reviews, you will see a perceived need in every single, like almost all of them.
Yeah.
Even the happy ones, the perceived need is they want a sequel, or they want to meet the author, or they wish they could know more, or they wish it was a video or something.
Right.
The perceived need is, yeah, okay, I can tell they want more. And the negative ones are like, oh, this book was too long. Well, they need a Cliff Notes, or they need a summary from me, or they need a quick YouTube overview of the book.
Okay, I got you.
Or they need an alternate book that's shorter. And if I recommend that alternate book that's shorter, they'll love me for it.
Yeah, that's true.
Dude, you can get all that same info in this book. And here it is free online. Like, what?
Yeah.
Dude, best stranger I've ever met.
Yeah, I've had.
Do you have a website?
I've had people say that to me. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Assessing a perceived need, and it can't be your perceived need. I mean, you have to perceive it.
Yeah,
but it has to be a perceived need from their end, or they won't connect. When we met, I could see many perceived needs, like I want to help you with your weight, or I want to help you with your fashion sense, or I want to help you with this or that or whatever. But you weren't ready for those things. They weren't perceived needs. Your only perceived need was, I feel like depressed bullshit and I could use a pat on the back and some love or something.
Yeah.
That's the perceived need. If I started addressing those other unperceived needs that you weren't aware of or focused on, you'd just be like, what the hell? This is unsolicited advice. Why are you bringing this up?
Yeah.
So when someone we're connecting with has a need that they perceive, that they believe in their language, in their words, if you make any move towards fulfilling that need, from the smallest compliment to handing over a program to giving an alternate book recommendation, they will feel the love and the value and they will connect with you.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you go and fulfill those needs, you have to do it in an authentic way. So it gets back to authenticity. If you don't want to give away your program, then you can't do that. You have to find some other way to help this person.
Right.
You can share my program. We can read together. Okay, now you found an authentic way to do it. Great. Oh, I'll see if I can get an extra one from up front for you. Fine, great. But it has to be authentic to you.
Yes.
So that's really it. It's a simple framework. Anyone can do this. It's so simple. But people don't practice it. And even when they do practice it, they do it without being authentic, or they assess someone's need, but it's like whatever need they think, not the person's perceived need that they believe in.
Yeah, I was going to actually just touch on that for a minute. For me, it's really easy to tell what other people want. Hold on. I know. I can have a conversation with someone and they're not even talking about it. And I can sense what they need and want, just like what you were saying about me. However, I have been in that place where I assumed this need, which I found out later they did need, but they weren't ready. Just like you said about me, I wasn't ready to talk about my weight or my anxiety and other things, right? And so even if you can read that person, you have to take them at their face value. So if they say, if they're clear in, I want more leads, I'm here at this networking event to network and meet more people, then that has to be what you help them with.
Even if their brand is dying and screaming for help and you're like, dude, let's fix your brand first. There's no point getting leads until you fix your brand. Doesn't matter. Does not matter.
Yeah.
This person perceives leads as a need. So fulfill that. Or like my drug addict example, their real need is probably to get clean.
Yeah.
But that's not their perceived need. And so it doesn't matter if I can see that they need to get clean. I have to stick with the perceived need, which is, hey, maybe go play some video games in the internet cafe. It'll take the edge off of your withdrawal pains. I get it, bro.
Right.
And they will feel the connection. They will feel the love. But the opposite way, trying to address their sobriety, they're not ready for that. Whatever. That's not a perceived need.
No. And in fact, you're trying to network with that person and connect with them. It's going to actually do the opposite, and they're going to hate you, and they're going to avoid you at all costs. So just, it's something that I had to learn the hard way, was to take people at their face value and believe what they say. Even if you know secretly you're like, okay, whatever. Doesn't matter. You have to believe at least what they're presenting to you. And this will be super helpful when you're networking, especially in in-person events. So
if you want to go really in depth on assessing people's needs and fulfilling them, you should check out a couple episodes back, Dating and Investing in Humanity. It covers the checkbox system that will help you so much.
Yeah, that's incredible. And even though it's about dating, you can use it for anything.
Well, networking is kind of like dating.
That's true. This is true. Okay, so Jay, you talk a lot about practice and value, right? Mm-hmm. This is something practice. We said it 50 times already. Mm-hmm. So do you have any actionable tips for people that they can practice before they get into a networking situation or an event?
Sure. One, you can practice imagining your own value. So imagine what you're good at. Imagine what you like to bring to the table. Imagine what you're passionate about. It's important because I don't know if you ever saw the study. It's cited often about the three groups of gym students. One practiced sinking baskets with their imagination. Yeah. One practiced sinking baskets normally, and one didn't practice at all. Right. And the ones who practiced with their imagination did just as good, if not better, than the other groups.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were a kid, you did this often, and it's how you grew fast and learned quickly. You would imagine walking like the big adults. You would imagine talking like the big adults, even if you weren't practicing. It was efficient. You were very efficient with your time because you were off imagining it even when you weren't out there doing it. And that helped you crush it when the time came, just like the gym students with the basketball. And so in this case, you can practice imagining your own value, the things that you like to do and share and engage with, and then imagine giving them to other people, giving those things to other people, and then imagine people's responses. How did they respond? How would you handle it if someone said no thank you? How would you handle it if they loved it? How would you handle it if there was many people to give it to? Would you pick one? Would you give it a little bit to everybody? How would you do these things? It's kind of the best practice you can get without being at the networking event or the date or the coffee date or whatever. Secondly, practice knowing your own boundaries. This comes back to authenticity. Everyone should have boundaries. We're humans. You shouldn't be like a doormat with no boundaries that everyone can walk all over. It's very, very healthy to have boundaries.
Right.
And to connect to two people or two things, there must be boundaries. I don't go past this. I don't go past this. Like, we respect each other's boundaries and we connect. You're your own person. I'm my own person, but we connect. It's not just like, oh, there's no boundaries. I'll do whatever. I'll do whatever you want, man. Like, you have to have your lines.
Right.
And if you're going to go network with people, you really need to know those lines. Like, oh, I don't feel comfortable doing XYZ, right? On a date, it's good to know your boundaries. I'm not looking for kids, or I need someone who's left wing or right wing, or I believe in this religion. If you're not cool with that, we should part ways. It's very, very important. You don't have to throw them in people's face. That's not what it's about.
Right.
But people who show up to the date not knowing their boundaries are in for a world of pain. And the connection will be rough. It will be a rough connection that ultimately probably won't work out. But people who show up with boundaries will either maturely separate because, oh, that's a hard line or a deal breaker for me, or they'll be clear about their boundaries and be like, hey, we're kind of a fit. I'm fine with your boundaries. You're fine with mine. I think we're going to have a respectful connection.
Right.
So this kind of practice helps a lot. Practice knowing your own boundaries. Write them down. Make a list of them. Make sure they're in your mind. And don't throw them in front of people, but keep an eye out. If you feel like a boundary is getting crossed or about to be crossed, you can bring it up. Like, I think, this might not be a fit, etc. So that's the second thing. And the third thing you can practice is speaking other people's language. It may seem like we all speak English when we go to a networking event, or if you're watching this in a foreign language in whatever your language is, Espanol or something. But the truth is, people from all cultures and industries and fields all speak a different language. I might go to a networking event or a party and meet 3 different people, and all 3 different people want to accomplish a certain goal. And I know a lot about goal achievement and accomplishing goals. And so I really want to share my thing, but they're not interested in goal achievement by themselves. They are interested in achieving specific goals. One wants to achieve winning the next sports match. One wants to achieve a better love life with her partner. Another wants to achieve a massive business empire. And although my framework for achieving goals applies to all 3 of these situations, and I know I can help them, and I can see all the perceived needs, if I'm not speaking their language, we won't connect. They'll tune out and zone out and be like, yeah, great stuff. You seem like a good life coach. I'm going to go back to the party. If I want to connect with the sports person, I have to be able to name drop certain sports personalities. I have to be able to talk about crazy comebacks from past matches. I have to be able to at least use a sports metaphor about Michael Jordan driving to the lane or to the hoop or something. If I want to talk about goal achievement with the girl seeking intimacy, I can't be talking about sports metaphors. She's going to tune out and bounce. I can't be talking about life coach self-help stuff. She's like, whatever, what? I just want to be married better. So I need to be able to speak her language. If I want to connect and network, I need to talk about dead bedrooms and relationship harmony and deeper levels of intimacy. And I need to cite power couples like Jay-Z and Beyonce and what they went through, or Kim Kardashian and Kanye West and what they went through. And I need to draw comparisons and parallels, or at least use a dating or marriage metaphor. to get through to this person. And I could do the same thing with the business person, but this episode's long enough. The point is, practice speaking other people's language. If you're going to a tech convention, brush up on your tech language and your tech metaphors. If you're going to go to a speed dating event, brush up on your pop culture or relationship talk. If you're just having a Zoom call with some influencer, research the influencer, Google them, check out their socials and their profiles, find out what language they talk, what terms they resonate with. I don't know how many words there are in the English language, but everyone you meet really zones in on a particular section of it. So learn to speak their language.
It's really helpful. Thank you so much. And I completely agree with all of that you just said. And like, this is what I do. I spend all my time doing this. And every single thing that you've taught today, you've taught me, and I've learned how to use this and do all this stuff. And I'm telling you, it worked. I wish I had a video of the first couple times that I was trying this, and I was like trying to communicate with other people and network, and the scared feelings and the fears and insecurities that just had a hold of me. So you could see the difference when I do it now.
Well, I remember you used to come into the room and like, oh, I screwed up this message and they're mad at me and now I'm crunchy and can you help me and what should I say and whatever. Yeah. Now you never ask that stuff.
Like I rarely need any help unless I'm not sure about the actual words, because again, what you just said, they're speaking one language and I'm speaking another, and maybe I've missed something or they've missed something that I'm trying to say or whatever. So in that case, I reach out.
Absolutely. There's also an improv technique they call the yes and technique. This is really good to keep in mind. I guess I should have pointed it out, but whenever you're connecting with anyone, especially in the early stages of connection, a no or a negative or a not or an argument or a disagreement is like a deal killer. They just be like, whatever.
Yes.
Their mind will close. They'll leave as soon as possible. Just agree with people. Yes. Yes. And also, sir or madam, you might want to know about this. Just agree. And I mean, sincerely agree. Yeah. Really agree with their worldview. If you care about connection. If you just care about being right, then you can fight them all day long.
That's really good. So I have a short example for this. So yesterday we posted a video about trans, saying everybody who's trans is somewhat of an activist, but you don't want to be lumped into the aggro trans people who are in your face and yelling. And someone commented that they were assuming that we were Democrats and we were shitting on Republicans for some weird reason. They were confused. And I asked you, like, does this sound okay, what I wrote? And then afterwards, I thought, I reread it again and I realized, oh, they didn't even watch. They got triggered by the first couple words, didn't even pay attention to the rest of the video. So this goes back to what you were saying. I'm speaking one language. This person has a whole different language in their mind, not realizing we're actually probably kind of on the same page. Maybe not completely, but for the most part. And no one was shitting on anyone actually in the video, what we were saying, but he was assuming. All he cared about was being right. And so he had to leave this message and to prove he was right and accuse us of this. And I was just like, thanks for your input, dude. Maybe you might want to watch the full video to see all the things we're saying. And he didn't reply. And usually people don't reply back to me is because they realize, oh, my bad, I effed up and wasn't paying attention. And you can do that and you can disappear, but they will be impressed by you if you say, oh, my bad. I'm so sorry, I misunderstood. I would have been blown away and been like, oh, good dude, have a nice day. So speaking the same language as someone else and learning how or trying to understand, especially if you're in a networking situation, I highly, highly recommend. And I just want to, again, just say all the stuff that you've been saying here today is just incredible. So if you're shit at this, just follow all that stuff. Okay. So I'm going to move on. So Jay, what happens if someone's like, I can't do this. Screw this. I'm done. I don't care. You guys are great, but it's just networking is not for me. I can't do it. Can those people still be successful with their business or their brand or their job without networking?
Yes and no. You're kind of talking about me. In the beginning, you said Jay hates networking. Not 100% true. I don't think I could teach it this well if I was hateful of it.
No.
But I'm not passionate about practicing it and applying it very often if I can avoid it. The thing is, I don't think this is very common. I feel like the way it's more common for people to drive than for people in our society not to drive.
Mm-hmm.
It's more common for people to desire human connection and want to practice this activity than it is for someone to not.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're one of the few who, like me, authentically has done this soul searching and is not afraid of connecting or afraid of networking, and it isn't trying to make excuses, and has already tried it and practiced it and gotten quite good at it and just simply prefers not to,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I mean, fair. If it's authentically not in your life path, so be it. But at least in business and branding, networking must be done. Kind of like in swimming, moving across the water must be done.
Yeah.
Can I swim without moving across the water?
No,
Or
you may not.
moving in the water?
No.
Like, not even treading water would count, I don't think. Like, no, you just can't. That's part of the thing. So in business or career, connecting with other humans is going to be necessary. And in relationships, for sure. But you can delegate or automate a lot of it. For example, I'm not a huge fan of networking, so I found and partnered up with you. Mm-hmm. Or attracted and partnered up with you, however you want to look at it. And I imagine there are other CEOs and founders who kind of like to hermit it up in their office and have a team network for them. This is fine, but it takes a different set of skills. Can you manage people? Can you attract the right people? Hire and fire the right people? Can you train them? Are they going to network in the way you want? Are they going to represent your brand well? Are they going to make you look good? Are they going to make you look bad? So it opens a whole other can of worms. But technically doable.
But even though it's not your favorite thing and you're not passionate about it, you've done it, you're good at it, and you know how to do it, and you can teach it. So, and I could be wrong, but even if you don't like it and you're not passionate about it and you want to delegate it to someone else, you ought to know how to do it so you know what you want the person you're delegating it to do. Otherwise, you're clueless and you're like, oh, go network. And they're doing one thing, but in your mind, you're expecting another. So yeah, you should learn how to do it.
Yeah, just like any manager, you might want to know the basics of what you're managing.
Yeah.
That said, you still sort of need the basics of connection and networking to even find someone to get to delegate it to.
There you go. Yeah.
Can you connect with your new networker?
Yeah.
Can you assess their needs and provide them value, fulfill their needs, their perceived needs? Or are you clueless at that? If you can't fulfill the perceived needs of your newfound networker, they're not going to stick around very long. Sure. And your connection with them is going to fail.
Yeah.
So, I
got you.
You can also automate connection, have a bot do it for you, have ChatGPT do it for you, have something go and connect for you. But again, how do you program the automated thing? How do you tell it what to do and how to do it and how you want it done and how you want it to network if you don't know the basics of connecting with others and networking with others?
Agreed.
Bit tricky. And you could try and put your networking in the hands of an automated bot that someone else made, but is it going to suit you? Is it going to do right by you? Is it going to network well for you? And how long is it going to last? Like, how long do those bots last? And when do they stop working or get outdated or obsolete? And then you're back to square one. It's really just a life skill, like dressing yourself or eating. You really should learn how to connect to other human beings in an authentic way. And it sucks that most parents, teachers, authority figures don't teach this and actually make it hard to do by teaching you to be inauthentic and wear a mask. But that doesn't mean it's not super important. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't get on this ASAP.
Agreed. All right. So Jay gave us a ton of tips and a lot of great information, but I'm just going to give you one of my personal tips, what I use that Jay taught me as well, that I think you touched on it briefly today. So one of the things that worked for me, and it may not work for you and it doesn't have to, but you may want to try it, are compliments. I give genuine compliments. I always find something to compliment the person on, whether it's their physical appearance, their kindness, their energy, the actual words they're saying, something. And it's authentic because I really, really mean it. I'm not making things up. I'm not pretending. And this is another way that I connect with people, and people love it. They can't help it. And for me, it's so natural. I don't even have to think about it. It's just who I am. It's, like I said, my superpower. And also asking a lot of questions. That's another little bonus for you to ask a lot of questions. People love to talk about themselves. So thank you for all the great information that you gave us today.
Do that too. Thank people.
Yeah,
have gratitude.
That's another one too. Thank them. You can thank them for their time, for their patience, for talking to you, whatever. Like,
be thankful.
Yeah, be thankful too. That's a good one. And I'm always thankful for you. I'm super thankful for everything that you taught me, that you taught everyone today, that you've taught me personally. And this is another reason why we started this podcast too, is because I felt like I was being greedy by getting all this gold all to myself. And I was like, I have to share this with the world. This cannot be for just me. So you're welcome. All right. My last question. Do you have anything that you'd like to share with our wonderful audience?
Yeah, like I said before, there are 8 billion people on the planet. Your people are out there waiting for your authentic self. Connecting with them means creating a rapport with them right at the beginning. Creating a rapport with them means giving and shining your authentic value. But they'll only receive your authentic value if you've properly assessed their perceived needs and fulfilled that in language that they resonate with. To do this effectively, you need to care about, observe, and understand others, or at least make an effort and improve at that. You also need to care about, observe, and understand yourself and your boundaries and your passions. If you don't understand yourself, it's hard to connect authentically with others. If you can't put yourself in others' shoes and perceive their needs from their viewpoint, it's hard to connect with others. So practice caring about, observing, and understanding yourself and others, because practicing this will make you good at this, which will guarantee you become amazing at networking and connecting with other people. I'm psyched to see your network grow. Thank you so much for listening.
And thank you, Isaac, too, for the amazing suggestion for our podcast today.
Oh, and Isaac's wife.
And Isaac's wife. It's for you.
Much love.
Yeah, much love. And that's why our book and this podcast is called Eyes Wide Open.
Keep rising.